Hello! It's been a while since I've done a coloured pencil review, and I remembered that I have this entire box of Derwent Coloursoft pencils in my stash, so I thought I'd pull them out. I've barely used these, so let's get into it and swatch all of these colours and see what they look like. This is the 72 set in the most recent 10. I've only used them a little bit, but they are, from what I remember, quite good. They're quite a soft pencil. It comes in 2 trays. In the standard 72 set that Derwents usually have. By the looks of it, I've used that black a bit on something, and that was quite a while ago. The trays, as per usual, are quite flimsy, so you do have to be careful with them not to flip it too much and explode all the pencils out. I've done that before, don't worry. It seems like there's a nice array of colours. I swatched them out ages ago, but I just don't know what I did with the swatch anyway, so I might as well do it again and remind myself of all of the colours that are in here. They're quite a thick core, I think usually about the same size as the Pro colours and the lightfast pencils, so they're all quite similar. The standard wave design that Derwent pencils have with the colour on the end, also the name of the colour and the number on there, as well as Derwent Coloursoft. So nothing too exciting about the pencils, they're pretty much a standard Derwent pencil, but let's get swatching them and have a look at these lovely colours. To help me swatch them is the big book of colour charts, which I've used any number of times and I'm slowly filling out with my different collections of pencils. But here are the Derwent Coloursofts, and of course they've put them on 2 pages here, which is a little confusing, but it's going to be fun to swatch, I can imagine. And on closer inspection, this is definitely the top tray and this is the bottom tray. So starting in with the yellows, and have you noticed that a lot of companies will begin with yellows and then go into oranges and reds rather than standard Roigerbiv? I always thought this was kind of strange, but it does actually make sense when you think that then the last colour is green, which then transitions into brown. But for the longest time I always used to have to start with red, and I've since changed my mind on that topic. But anyway, I digress. Now we're going into the reds here. So you can see with these pencils that they are pretty brightly coloured and they do lay down very smoothly. I apologise that it's quite difficult to see the names as I'm colouring them, and that's because everything's aligned on the left-hand side of the book, and it would have been so much easier if I was left-handed in this case, because then my hand would be on the outside rather than covering all of the text. But it can't be helped, I'm afraid, because I can only use my right hand. And yes, I did get a pencil out of order there. I realised a couple of mine are in a slightly different order, and I had to rub one of them out and cover it with the correct pencil. So after that I was a bit more careful with checking that I had the right colour. There are a considerable number of pinks in this set and going into the purples. Now, pinks are notorious for not being very light fast, and so I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of colours in the Coloursoft set that are not considered to be light fast. So if light fastness is something that you're really concerned about, then I would definitely recommend checking out Derwent's charts, which will, I think, have the lightfast information. I'll link that down below in the description so you can check it out for yourself. These are usually pretty easy to buy as singles, so you don't have to purchase the entire set. You could go through and choose individual colours that suit your needs and are the most lightfast. But those concerns aside, I do like the colour palette that they have in this set. The blues are a little lacking in that the indigo they have in here is actually not that dark, and so it doesn't have quite the range of values that I would normally prefer. It's a bit like that with the greens as well, in that most of them are kind of a mid-range when it comes to value. Even the dark green is not that dark. It's like if you compared them with the Derwent Lightfast set, you'll notice in that one that there are far more deeper greens than there are in this set. I do quite like their range of earth tones, and that does seem to cover quite a lot of the spectrum and has a lot of the colours that I would quite often use. I do like those peaches and pale peaches. I don't think those would be very light fast either though. I think as a whole, the Coloursoft pencils are probably more suited to sketchbooks and colouring books, just because then you don't have to worry so much about light fastness being an issue, and there is a nice range of colours for a variety of subjects, probably leaning more towards brighter things, but at the same time There are enough muted colours that you could make a smaller palette that would be useful for things like portraits or even a few landscapes and things like that. All done. So overall, a nice array of colours. Quite a lot of pinks and purples in here, which is unusual, and I wouldn't hold my breath that these are particularly light fast, but they're nice colours and the pencils are lovely and smooth, so I think I will use different paper because this paper isn't super great, and I think it would just be better to do a demonstration on nicer paper so we can see how they really work together. Moving on to my drawing of a kingfisher, and I forgot to record just the beginning of it, which is a very light layer of pencil that I coloured over the entire drawing, and now I'm going back with darker layers so that I can get a lot more colour and depth into the drawing. I find doing an underpainting, or underdrawing in this case, first really helps me to see the whole picture. I can't work very well on one little section at a time, it's just not the way my mind thinks. I'd like to see the whole picture and then work in the details as I go. So I'm using a hot press watercolour paper here by the brand Fluid. I don't actually like this paper for watercolours themselves because the paper's just far too smooth and the watercolour just kind of sits on it rather than blending as I want watercolours to do, but it actually works really well for coloured pencils, so I'm using up my small pad of paper for that reason. And I like to have a nice smooth paper for coloured pencils just so that then you don't get a lot of texture coming through underneath, but it did have just enough tooth to hold these pencils. Now the Coloursoft pencils do live up to their name, they are in fact very soft, and my biggest struggle with them is actually sharpening the pencils to a fine point. It didn't happen with all of the pencils, but I found with the blue ones that they just kept breaking every time I tried to sharpen them, and so I was very conservative with sharpening them gently and only a little bit at a time. So they're kind of blunt and it made it difficult to get a lot of detail in because I was just not getting any luck making the points really sharp on some of those. That was the biggest problem I had with them, and it's like a trade-off where the softer the pencil, you get a lot more of that lovely colour laying out really easily, but man, they're such a nightmare to sharpen. So if you get a firmer pencil that's easier to sharpen, they may not lay down quite as much colour. But really it is just a matter of preference because there are firmer pencils out there that I also really love, such as the Faber-Castell Polychromos. But of course Derwent has since released sets like the lightfast ones, and those are just so superior, but then they also do cost quite a lot more. So as an older set of pencils, the Colorsofts are still quite nice, and I haven't actually used many of the Derwent Pro Colour pencils yet, but I actually think I prefer the Colorsofts to the Pro Colours. I really do need to get some Pro Colours to test that though. Those are one set that I have not yet got in my collection, and I'm sort of reluctant to because when I used some of my father's ones, I wasn't that keen on them. And those also have lightfast issues as well. So at this stage in my art career, I think I would definitely choose the Colorsofts over the Pro Colours if you were looking to pick one of those two sets. I enjoyed using these in this drawing. You can see that my kingfisher is starting to emerge here, and I was spending more time trying to get some of those details. It had quite a lot of purple reflections and highlights in its feathers, so that's what I was adding in here, using some of that non-lightfast pink, but that's okay. I did not spend a huge amount of time on this. It's very much meant to be stylized and not super hyper-realistic because I did not have the patience to spend forever colouring each and every feather. If you do something like that, you're going to be there a long time, but I do not have that luxury when I am filming for YouTube videos, so I've adapted my coloured pencil style in order to make quicker drawings, but still get at least some of the detail in. So you can see I'm using a few different shades of blue here, and they were blending over the top of each other pretty well, even though this paper is actually very smooth and you'd think it wouldn't hold that much in the way of layers, but it held up pretty well. Now I could not tell you if it would be as successful doing a really hyper-realistic drawing where you're using way more layers than what I did, but for my particular style, the paper and the pencils were perfectly fine together. The warmer colours here in particular were pretty saturated, and even the blues weren't too bad, although I was wishing there was a bit of a darker blue. I think this is the darkest blue in the set, which is the indigo, but it's nowhere near as dark of an indigo as most other pencil sets have. Anyway, I just made do with it, and I also used some of the darkest brown and blacks for the deepest shadows. So I coloured the bird in entirely without using any other products like odorless mineral spirits, but I did try a little bit of it out on the branch here. I was using a far sketchier method on the branch. As you can see, it's nowhere near as precise as the bird, and I find that often when I've finished the main subject, I'll tend to just cut corners, if you will, on the subjects of lesser importance. In this case, the branch to me wasn't as exciting to do as the bird. And you can see I'm using a cotton bud here that I'd dipped into odorless mineral spirits, Gamsol brand I think, and these pencils blended okay, but nowhere near as well as other pencils I've used, such as the Derwent Lightfast, which do blend incredibly well with Gamsol mineral spirits. I think the Coloursoft pencils are wax-based rather than oil-based, and they just didn't break down quite as well. But I kind of ended up leaving the branch, and here is my final image. So here we are, all finished. So what do I think of these pencils? Well, I do like them. They're lovely and soft, they're very rich and vibrant, and they layer well. They maybe don't blend quite as well with odorless mineral spirits as some other pencils do, but it was okay. On this paper though, it didn't really need the mineral spirits because it's smooth enough, and I was able to get a decent enough amount of pencil on there without too much white space. They did layer over the top of each other. You can burnish it, so there is a lot of versatility in these pencils. I really like the colours, I think they're nice and vibrant. The only drawback is that they do not sharpen well, and it's so annoying having that pencil so much shorter than all the rest. Oh, I snapped it about 3 times, I think. It was so super frustrating, and it's the same issue that I have with Prismacolor Premier pencils, that because they're so soft, they break really easily when you sharpen them. But aside from that one negative, I think this is a pretty decent set of coloured pencils, and if you happen to see them on special somewhere, then yeah, they're definitely worth a try. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click that subscribe button for more videos, and do leave a comment down below as to what you think about these pencils. Have you used them before, and do you like them? I will see you all again really soon in my next video. I hope you're having a wonderful day out there. Swatch you later. Bye!